What's up, people? I am back. Sorry this video specifically has taken a while. I wanted to watch the movie twice, so I watched it the first time. We're talking about Final Destination 6 or Final Destination Bloodlines, whatever you want to call it. And I saw it. Technically, I saw it Wednesday night. Thursday morning, technically, because it would have been midnight. But I wanted to get like a second viewing, and I didn't know when I was going to watch it again. But thankfully, it's on the seas, so I rewatched it last night with some friends, and to get like a second opinion on it. And man, does it hold up! I mean, I liked it the first time. I definitely like it more the second time. And I remember I was a little cautious, obviously, when they first announced this, because I was like, okay, y'all, I mean, we know how Hollywood rolls, even with horror. How like y'all know, y'all saw Halloween Ends, Scream 5. Like there's been some really bad Exorcist. I'll even throw that one in there. Exorcist Believer, because that's technically supposed to be a sequel to the original. That was also really bad. So there's been some really bad, specifically in horror, comebacks. So to see one that's actually really good, but also reinvents himself a little bit, like this one is about a specific family. It's about the Campbell family. Iris, who's the grandmother, that's the opening premonition. In my opinion, that opening premonition at that like skyscraper restaurant is one of the, it's definitely going to be up there with, like, I'm going to say it, I even think it's up there with like Flight 180, the highway accident in 2, the roller coaster from 3. I put that up there. Like, we're going to be talking about this opening kill sequence for years to come, I think. I love how well it was done. Yeah, there's CGI blood, but to me, it doesn't bother me because I think the CGI is done well to where it almost does look like real blood. And I hate it. Like, I understand there's a lot of people out there, especially in the horror fan base, that just do not like fake blood. They just hate it. Like, and here's the thing, I understand it. I'm never gonna argue for it. Would I rather them be more practical for the most part? Yeah, and I think there probably are some practical parts in the movie. But yeah, there's definitely some CGI parts. But to be honest, I think compared to like a lot of other movies where I think like CGI blood for the most part looks kind of shit, I think this one, and even 5 a little bit, I think had did a good job with the CGI blood. And I thought they built the tension with the kills, but you also have like those really quick kills, right? You have a nice balance in this. Stephanie is having basically dreams about her mother or grandmother's premonition, and she goes to her grandmother. Unfortunately, her grandmother, because she went outside, because, well, initially she seemed like little, like, I'm just gonna say it, she was kind of scared of her grandmother when her grandmother was telling her everything. She also told her, the rest of the story, like how it was a premonition and how she was able to save everything. But unfortunately, death is trying to basically overwork itself and basically kill everybody who survived. And I also think this movie did a really good job of tying all the films together, or most of the films. They acknowledged that there's one survivor in Kimberly. That's the main girl from the second film. And the ending is one of those that's a little disputed because some people they felt like, I think I saw a lot of like, they really felt like they wanted to show, like, they wanted a survivor because they felt like just killing everybody was kind of cheap. For me, the reason it doesn't bother me, I don't look at Final Destination like, I don't even see it as a slasher, but like even just other horror, right? Where there's like a survivor you're gonna follow. Well, there's a lead character you're gonna follow, but generally they're gonna survive till the end. I don't look at Final Destination like that type of franchise. I mean, outside of Kimberly and then the cop from the second movie, there's really been no survivors. Technically, Ali Larder and Alex survive the first film, but then they get killed in the second. Like, Ali Larder gets killed in the end, and then they kill Alex off screen. And I think that's just more because they couldn't get Devon Sawa back. I bet you they wanted to get Devon Sawa back, but they couldn't. So I really am okay. Because outside of that, Mary Elizabeth Winstead dies in the third movie. Obviously, the characters, and granted, the film is really dog shit, but in 4, Even 5, obviously, if you've seen the ending, or 5, basically, it's they're on flight 180. So I've always felt like that was just a thing. So that's why it didn't bother me. Maybe I can agree that maybe the ending you could have had maybe an extra like 10 minutes, maybe instead of like how quick it was. And maybe that's what it was. I think that's more what probably bothers people. Maybe they just don't want to admit it, but it could just be how quick it was. I'll agree there. It was a little quick, but I mean, I never thought there was going to be a survivor in these movies. That's not Final Destination is not the Survivor franchise. It's not supposed to be like the happy ending, they defeated the evil kind of franchise. You know, I to me, Final Destination, and I thought for me, it's just a journey getting there. I actually like the idea of it being a family. They changed it up, but they changed it up, but they didn't change it up to the point where it's unrecognizable. Because, contrary to popular belief, a lot of people think, oh, we just want the same thing every movie. We don't want nothing to ever change. Oh, shit, sorry. We don't want anything to ever change. We just want the same movie over and over. And that's like, that's not true. I'm all for changing up, you know, granted, not, I'll bring up a different franchise where I think it did that. They didn't always do it well, but Halloween, they always changed it, but that's the ones that did change it up a bit, but still kept the spirit. That's all a lot of us ask is it's like, okay, you want to change it up a little bit? Cool. Change the formula a little bit. Like this one. Instead of it being like a bunch of strangers doing their own thing, it's an entire family. And I think that actually helps with the plot because this is the first one I was telling a couple of people this last night, and then after I had saw it, that this is the first Final Destination where I actually did not want anybody to die. I wasn't like actively rooting for someone to die because even in the first one, you have like Tartar, the douchebag from the first movie. You want him to die. In the second one, I wanted the black dude to die because he was fucking annoying. And then even that lady, the model lady who got killed in the car, that scene, who got killed later on. I wanted her to die. So there's a couple characters. In 3, obviously there was that one douchey dude who kept hitting on all the chicks. And then even the douchey football jock guy, I wanted him to die. And then obviously 4, I think 4, I kind of wanted everyone to die. That's like the only one where I actively wanted everybody, including even the main character, to die. Even in 5, I think is the only other one where I can think of I didn't actively want someone to die. But granted, even the douchey guy, Tom Cruise looking dude, I kind of wanted him to die. So this is like the only one where I actively did not want anyone to die. And I think it helps with that family story. But going back to my point about that, I'm all for changing up the formula a little bit. You just gotta retain the spirit of whatever franchise you're doing. And I think that's what a lot of us ask. We're not just saying, make the same movie over and over. There might be some people. I'm not. I'm all for, like, if you want to change it up a bit. I know it's a weird comparison, but look at Jason X. They changed it up. It was in the future in space. Maybe for some people that didn't work, but it was still at least a Jason film in the spirit of he's killing people instead of in Crystal Lake. It's just in a spaceship, but basically it's still Jason. I have no problem changing up shit as long as you keep the spirit of it. Only negative, I have 2 negatives. One, there was this book that Iris had that basically clearly had like all the deaths tying up, and it's like all the deaths from probably the other previous movies that I wish they explored more. I felt like it was there, but it was almost just a prop. I really wish they went into it more. Like, there's a scene where Stephanie, this is after the uncle's death. The uncles who you saw kind of die in the trailers. After that, like, she goes and tells her family basically everything about like the lore, and obviously they don't believe her the first time. But I wish in that scene she used the book, because I felt like the book was such an interesting idea. This book that has like basically all the deaths leading up to this point. Obviously it would have just been from the previous 5 movies. I'm not even saying you need to go through every single one. It would have been kind of cool to go through, like, here's some of the deaths from the first movie and the second one. Maybe a couple from the third one, maybe one if you want to from the fourth and the fifth. Definitely a couple from the fifth. I think it would have been cool to go into that a little bit in a couple of scenes. So I understand maybe they just thought it was just a cool prop, but I really wish they went into it more. Because even in the trailers, they made like such a big deal about this book, and then in the movie, it's just kind of there. But that's like my only real criticism, like my only actual criticism. I have like another one, and this is more minor. I can agree though, because I was watching one of my friends, Gigawatt, and he brought up a really good point about he wants them to finally go into the actual premonitions and how they work. And I'm kind of there too. Like, I'm all for keeping stuff to the chest. You don't want to, oh, I'm not saying you need to tell me every fucking origin story, but it would be interesting to actually go into the premonitions and actually how they work. Especially being the sixth movie. Tell us about the premonitions because for some people, I don't agree with it fully, but there might just be some people out there that's like, okay, I'm just gonna watch a bunch of people die, so I just gotta turn my brain off kind of movie. And I don't think this is definitely the one I would not call it a turn your brain off movie. I actually think the story is really good. But I do kind of wish they actually went into the actual premonitions finally. I think it's time. You don't need to tell me everything, but definitely tell us a little bit, like how they work. And I mean, I have a theory that it's like, at least in this movie, it felt kind of genetic. Like, I always got the vibe that she got it, like, either it skipped a generation because I don't think the mom was psych, or not psychic, but didn't have the premonitions. But I got the vibe that it was a little bit genetic, that maybe it's passed down. But that's a theory of mine that I just, because I saw at least that I inferred. A lot of it is me inferring. And I just think we need to finally just get into like how this shit works. It's time. You gotta tell that. Because it's either do you guys just not know how it works and you just don't want to explain it, or do you know how it works but you just don't want to explain it because you feel like, oh, we want to keep it a secret. But I feel like if you keep doing that, some people are just gonna get tired of it and they're just gonna not take this franchise seriously. They'll watch the movies, but they'll watch this as like, let's say, like, I hate this comparison, but like something like Piranha 3D. You're not watching for the story, you're just watching either for the tits or the crazy piranha kills. And that's how I feel about with this. Like, I personally don't feel that way, but I can understand someone feeling like that, like where like I don't really need to invest in this franchise because you're just never gonna tell me how the premonitions work. You're just gonna basically make the same kind of template movie. You might change it up a little bit, like obviously making it a family, but there's still obviously that element of it's about, a group of people dying and someone has a premonition, you know? So it's gonna get to a point that some people are just gonna look at that like you're just not gonna tell me how the premonitions work. Okay, you're just gonna make the same movie, so I'll just won't take your movies seriously. I'll watch them as dumb, fun, people dying movies, and that's it. And and maybe final they want to be looked at like that, but I do want a little bit more lore. And yeah. So, but outside of that, I mean, I like Eric. He's the dude with the piercings who you see in the initial clip. Seemingly, I thought he died in that clip, but he actually doesn't. He dies later in the movie. His actual death's fucking brutal. The kills themselves are fucking brutal. And for the first time, they straight up show a kid getting killed. And obviously, the kid's kind of the start of it because he kept throwing pennies. And a penny is definitely one of the things. They did a good job of, like, you know what? Fuck pennies. It's like, I don't trust pennies now. Like, they did a good job of that. Like, obviously, almost like the really good Final Destinations has one thing where they, like, you know what? I don't want to fuck with that after watching that movie. Like, planes with the first one. The second one, obviously, is log trucks. The third one's roller coasters. And I feel like this one is pennies. I think they really did a good job. 5, to an extent, you could say bridges, but I would argue, like, but I think this one does a really good job. You have likable characters. You understand why they're together. Even like the uncle's death, which they do play a lot of that, and that was in a lot of the trailers. They did a good job of not showing you the full scope of his death because you get the idea he's gonna die because he's gonna get a lawnmower to his face. it is much more violent and brutal when you watch it on screen, when you actually watch it in the movie versus just seeing it in the trailer. I even think that the trailer did a good job of like, yeah, they played that part a lot, so you like know what's gonna happen. They did a good job of not showing you how violent that scene actually is, because it's far more violent than I even thought initially going in. Obviously, the opening premonition. I mean, people getting set on fire, getting the building falling apart. And actually, that's another thing. I never want to go to a Sky restaurant now. I never want to go to a restaurant like that now. I'm good. I'm fucking good. And I think the movie does a good job. Like, yeah, you can ask, like, oh, like when people are dancing, how are they not noticing the ground cracking? But I think the movie does a good job of like almost explaining in a way they're partying. Some of these people are drunk. You know, they probably were drinking a little bit at this event, and they're just really into the song. So sometimes you're not like thinking about shit like that, and the music probably be loud enough. Maybe you're not hearing the cracking. So I think they do a good job at least explaining shit like that away. Um, Eric's death, because he has so many there's a scene where he's trying to help his brother, um because Bobby, his brother, is basically deathly allergic to nuts. So they give him a snack to eat, and they think, oh, if it stops his heart and we're in the hospital, we could try to save him. But they're near I think it's an MRI machine, and it starts fucking up. And you know how MRIs are magnetic. So Eric has a bunch of tattoos, and it pulls them in, and it just sucks his insides out, essentially. It's fucking brutal. And even the ending does with Stephanie and her brother get killed. They get killed with logs. I like the little callback to the logs. That's the other thing I really like that this movie does. They do not beat you over the head with, remember this, remember this, remember this. Like, there's a little bit of it. Like, I don't have a problem inherently having a little bit of nostalgia and remember this moments in a movie. You could do that. You know, even, granted, it's not a movie, but a show like Cobra Kai. There's a lot of member berries in there. But there's also episodes where they actually tell a story and they're not relying on member berries. And I think that's what this movie does. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I got tired a lot of every Final Destination. Oh, we gotta reference 180. It's like we have to have 180 somewhere in the fucking movie. And I think 4 did the worst because they're at the racing event and there's like a 180 like writing on the one of the pillars. And it's like, okay, guys, this is where we're just getting lazy with the 180 references. I understand that's the event that started it all, but there's a way to like not beat it. That's why I was kind of happy. I think there was a 180 like reference in this, but it's not like obvious. Like it's probably somewhere in the book when they go into it. Like it's probably like the only scene you really reference 180. I felt like they did a good job of making it its own movie, not relying like the logs. That was in the very fucking end of the movie. They didn't like, oh, we passed a log. Or there's a scene where Eric is in the street and he nearly gets hit by like either a bus or like a truck. Obviously, being a callback to the first movie when the lady gets hit. One of my other favorite kills is the scene. Her cousin, Stephanie's cousin. I'm trying to find the character. Julia. She ends up getting because the kids are playing ball and the ball hits her and she falls in the garbage truck or in the garbage can, which gets lifted because the garbage truck's there, and she ends up getting crushed in the garbage truck. I love how the setup is. Like they have a nice like amount of setup kills, like where there's a little bit of build and suspense, and then obviously you get the kills where there's just quick, right? Where it's like immediate. Like Bobby's was pretty much like that. He gets because they earlier Eric the vending is trying to buy one of like the snacks and the vending machine's fucking up. So he kicks it and like one of the springs comes out. But then they obviously call back to it and the spring just comes out, breaks out and impales Bobby to the machine. Like right through his head. So there's a good amount of like just quick kills like that. And then Iris's was pretty quick. Like she gets impaled in the face with like it was either like a beam or a pipe, something like that. And it was like the moment in a fucked up way too. I guess it was kind of sacrificial if you think about it, because at that point she was losing Stephanie. Stephanie was just getting scared of her. You're like, oh, this bitch is weird. But she actually was like, okay, I'm gonna have to like show you. This is gonna have to. You're gonna have to actually see this. And she knew in a way that the moment I step outside, I'm gonna die, and that's what happened. Do I agree? Her compounds. I've seen a little bit of not complaints, but I can see this being a little criticism. Um, where her compound is almost like a death trap, and I can't argue that. Like it is a little bit death trap. I'm like, this would be the last place if I'm gonna like bunker down. I would just probably be in an actual bunk. Kind of did what Alex did, where he like safeguarded everything. There's a scene in the original film where Alex like tapes everything and tries to like make it like anything that looks like a death trap. I'm gonna try to safeguard it. In that the place she built, I'm like, I don't necessarily think this is safe. But anyway, Tony Todd scene. I haven't gotten to this yet. I wanted to save this a little bit to the end before we actually get to the actual review now. Tony Todd scene. Granted, it's only one scene. It's pretty much all the scenes you see in the trailers is his only scene in the movie. But they make everything about that scene. It was nice seeing Tony Todd get to kind of act one more time. And I thought he did well. We find out because there's only one other survivor. At least in her premonition, Iris's premonition was JB, who we find out that's Bloodworth, and he's nicknamed JB. Iris saved him as a child, and it turns out they communicated later on, and he helped build her compound. Basically, I really like, as much as like a lot of us wanted him to be death, right? That was always the original theory, and I bet you maybe they wanted to do that originally, but obviously you could tell even in the movie Tony Todd looks kind of sickly. So that's why his scene where he talks about like living life and stuff, it's definitely a double meaning because it's like him. I think he knew like how sick he was and that he probably was gonna die, and this was definitely gonna be his last movie. So he wanted to take the time. So I wouldn't be surprised if there are people who really. I love Tony Todd, but it definitely hit different. And I may not have like got emotional or cried or anything, but I wouldn't blame anybody who actually did cry, especially if you really love Tony Todd, because he is a great fucking actor. So to see him get to act one last time in this movie, at least they explain how he knew everything. I think it works. Because if you think about it, it probably would have not looked good to make the guy who just died death. That, I think if he didn't die, maybe they probably would have actually went that direction. I think that was even the original intention when they made this movie. But because of how long it took, and then unfortunately Tony Todd dying, and probably, I'm going to be honest, he probably knew during filming he was probably going to die. I'm just going to be honest. So they probably thought it would probably be in bad taste to just make him death. So they went this direction, which I'm fine with. Would it have been cool to make him death? Because a lot of us theorized it. But, there's sometimes not all popular theories always have to be canon, Just because everyone thinks it doesn't mean it has to be that way. So I'm fine with what they did. That Tony Todd scene hit. He really, even though this was his last time, I thought he really made an impression in his last film. So I'm happy that if any film was going to be his last film, I thought it was nice him going out in this, giving him kind of because he knew he was going to die, basically, because he had cancer in the movie. So I thought they did a good job with that. So I'm happy the direction they went in the long run. Would it have been cool if he was death? Yeah, but, with obviously what happened in his health, I do think I can kind of see it being in bad taste now. So it's fine the direction they get. So, but overall, I guess it's time to actually get into the actual movie now. The plan is either today or tomorrow. I'm going to try to do it tonight, though. I am going to do an updated ranking, including Bloodlines, the Final Destination movies. I'll spoil where this one's gonna be. This one's gonna be third. I really like this one, especially a second watch. I initially gave it like an 8 out of 10. I think I'm gonna push it to an 8.5. This film is really good. Good story. I like the direction they went with like the family aspect, and I thought they did that well. It reinvented itself, but it didn't go too far to reinventing itself where it's not recognizable anymore. They did it nice. This is actually one of the rare times they actually did a balance where it was new stuff, but it still had that core. This is a Final Destination movie. And I dug the ending. I understand why some people didn't like it. And, my friend Calman said it would have been nice to have a survivor in the end who actually cheated death. That, yeah, I agree. But the thing is, they go that direction. For me, you can't bring that character back. Because I think they did it smart with Kimberly. She never came back in any of the later films. Because let's be honest, Alex and Ali Larter survived. And if they never made a second one, they would have been living on. But because they made a second one, basically both of them, granted, one of them was off screen. And then Ali Larter actually dies on screen. So I think if you're gonna do that, you can't bring the character back, because I feel like if you're gonna bring it back, it just confirms to me, oh, they're probably dying. They're gonna probably die. So I'd rather them just. I'm cool. The Final Destination to me isn't the Survivor franchise. It's just never been. Outside of really Kimberly, all the leads die especially from 3 on, die in the movie. Like Mary Elizabeth Winstead in 3, she died in the train accident. 4, the guy gets hit by a truck. Granted, the scene looked like dog shit. It looked really fucking bad. I'm gonna go in on 4 a little bit. Definitely gonna get a chance to go in on 4 when we do the ranking, because that one's gonna be dead last. That's gonna be another spoiler. That's gonna be dead last. So yeah, that happened, and then 5 was the tie to the original, where there was actually a prequel before the first Final Destination. So they die. So most of the actual people who get the premonitions and the cycle starts, they die in the end. So that's what, for me, that's just, I'm okay with that. This doesn't need to be the final girl franchise or final boy or whatever you want to call it franchise. I understand, like, in most movies you're gonna have, especially in horror, even if it's not a slasher, you're gonna have that one survivor generally, or a couple survivors sometimes. I've never looked at Final Destination as that franchise. It just has never been, outside of really the second movie. In my mind, I'm not even gonna count the first one because they die in the second movie, so I'm not even gonna count them. So really, it's only been done once. So, and I actually like that. Let's keep it unique. Like, it's only been one survivor, and I actually think that makes it interesting, because this film confirms Kimberly survived. She's the only survivor. So, and like I said, this is a solid return to form, and I'm okay if they do other movies, but if they want to just stop here and be like, you know what, Bloodlines is gonna be the last one, I'm okay with that too. So, anyways, I think it's time to get into the actual review. So, subscribe to Pin Down Podcast. We should actually be back for a stream next week. It's just shit happened, we weren't able to stream this week, but I think next week for sure we should be streaming. So, anyways, or we'll do at least a recording, because I just realized next week Saturday night's main event. So we'll probably just do a recording of like our thoughts on the show. So expect that. So we'll be doing something next week. But anyway, let's get into the show. So the movie opens. We meet Iris and her boyfriend, Paul, who ends up proposing to her. They go to this Sky restaurant, the Skyview restaurant tower. And I'm going to say it too, I didn't even really talk about it. The cinematography for this film. The cinematography for this film is really well done. Like, I actually think there's a lot of really just good shots. Like they actually tried with the camera work, and it's crazy because it's a Final Destination movie. That's never been one of those franchises you need to have strong cinematography, but I actually like that they tried because it does look really good. Like there's some really just good shots, especially of the when they're in the Skyview restaurant. Like that opening scene looks really good visually. He ends up proposing to her, Paul, to Iris, and she accepts, and you know you have a kid throwing pennies, and man, that fucking kid, man. God, this is especially they. I can't believe the movie did a good job of actually making it like because they actually do show the kid dying in the initial premonition, where you're like, you know what? I don't have a problem with that. Like that's wild. Like a movie was able to get you like that because normally you just inherently, even if a kid's a little bit of an asshole, you're not like, I want a kid to die. But I mean, in this sense, it's because he basically started the chain of events because he just kept trying to throw the fucking penny. I'm like, how's this kid here by himself? Because I'm assuming, or like his parents worked there. It looked like he was like some spoiled rich kid. So, but yeah, these chain of events start. The Skyview starts breaking apart. People are in the midst of a panic. You have a chef who ends up getting set on fire because he has a pan that's on fire and ends up lady gets set on fire the whole place because there's like hot air coming out of one part of it which causes the entire place to get set on fire. Like they really do a good job of like making the visuals and the scenes where Iris is trying to get away is done really well. Oh, we also find out she's pregnant um, in a scene earlier, um, and the building starts falling apart. So there's a section of people. Well, the glass falls through. That's what initially starts the whole thing. So people just straight up falling, and there's this. They play like that raindrop song and people just start. I will admit, this movie's probably is the funniest Final Destination because some of the stuff Eric says, but even just like the stuff in this movie, in this part of the movie, where people are just like, you have these guys who are just working, everything's just seemingly quiet, and they're listening to that song, and then just people start falling. Like, but what works is they don't overly do the comedy. It's like situational moment humor. That is what I want more of in movies. Moment humor where you got people talking like who are bros and they're just naturally gonna bro it out, and that's when that shit can be fun. You can have that stuff there. But when the shit starts, it's actually taken seriously. Because I don't have a problem with horror comedy, but I do sometimes feel like there are some people who just overly do horror comedy. Sometimes I do just want a straight up horror sometimes. But I think this Final Destination has been a little. It's never been uber like outside of like really the first one because I even feel like two. They kind of knew what they had, so they went. It was still taken seriously, so I guess you could throw two in there a little bit. But I think two and then this one I would say had like a nice balance of humor, like moment humor, and then the movie actually taking itself seriously when it needs to. Like I don't have a problem with comedy in movies. It's just when movies, even when movies supposed to take itself seriously, you just have everyone throwing fucking jokes, and it just takes me out of it. So, so it is nice to see like the movie took itself seriously when it needed to. Like outside of that scene, like there was moments where it did have a little bit of comedy with some of the kills, but I feel like there was also some kills they actually took themselves seriously. Like the scene, I'll just obviously we had no JB was the kid, who was at the sky view. He was hidden in like some kind of basket thing, and unfortunately, he saw his mother die, which that was tragic. He saw her burn alive. The kid ends up getting down to the ground, but one of a piano falls through, kills like some of the remaining people in the sky view, and they're all falling, and the piano falls on the kid. And like, holy shit! I'm like, wow, they actually showed that. Because I'm assuming there was definitely kids in the highway accident, but they don't. You're clearly not seeing them, and I don't count the kids you see in the second because they're not kids. Kids to me, they were like more like they were close teenagers. I think they both were like they looked like 13ish at least 13, 14. So they were more teenager than like because this kid was like 10. Like he looked like he was at least 10, maybe 11. But like between that, he was a kid. So it was still kind of shocking. Like wow, they actually showed that. And then Stephanie, who's actually in class, we find out she's been having this nightmare and this premonition. So I actually think it is kind of nice to have a different take where she's having somebody else's premonition, not just her own, which we find she does get later. But um she ends up going back to see her family. Um this is where we meet Marty and Charlie, who's her father, and Marty, I think, is like a brother throughout the film. Um, she tries to get answers about Iris, and we find out that Charlie is basically, and her uncle. Her uncle is basically Howard. Okay, Howard is her uncle. We find out that um, Howard, basically, who's Iris's son, essentially he basically disowned her because how she raised them and what she did. She sent letters to her family, which we obviously find out as warnings because she knows death is coming for her family, but she looks crazy, so they even had to move far away and like to not deal with Iris. So basically, Howard kind of tells her just ignore it essentially. And Darlene, not Darlene, Brenda, Howard's wife, does tell her give her basically the location of the book. And then she goes to visit Iris at her compound. And Iris tells her this basically the rest of the story where she actually we find out it was Iris's premonition. She manages to basically save everybody and stop the accident from happening, but because of that, death essentially is working its way to getting all the people who survive and their descendants that Skyview incident. Um, and then she starts kind of talking to Death because she thinks Death's there, but obviously to Stephanie, she just looks fucking crazy. So Stephanie's trying to leave, and then Iris tries to give her something. Um, and so she ends up going outside, and in a way, because she already had cancer, but she also knew in a way that if she ever went outside, that she's basically done. So she eventually goes outside, gives her sketchbook. This is where she gets the book of basically Death's motors, the way he operates and all. But she also felt like she kind of sacrificed herself, like I said, because she knew the moment she went outside, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to show you that this is real. So so it was a weather vane that impaled her face, and I thought that was pretty brutal. Yeah, it wasn't CGI probably, but it didn't look terrible. Like it didn't look as like, especially seeing it a second time. Which I'll be honest, I saw it. It's on the sea, so I'll just be honest, I saw it there again. But I actually do want to see it in the theater again at some point, like before it leaves. So maybe either next week or the week after, I do want to see it in the theater. Um, so we have the funeral, and this is where Darlene, Iris's mother, returns, and obviously Stephanie's apprehensive because we find out later her mom basically left because she felt like she was doing the same thing that Iris was doing, like being overprotective because obviously Iris raised her and with what she took with what she raised, so she's like, okay, I gotta be really protective of my kids. And she felt like if I stayed and kept raising you like that she essentially would have ruined her daughter's life. So that's why she abandoned. But obviously, to Stephanie, you just abandoned your mom that abandoned me. So I thought they did a good job with that, but they didn't go overly angsty with it. It's like you understand not Darlene. You understand their respects, especially when we find out later with what Darlene did. But Stephanie, you understand her initial like, I don't want to talk to you because to her, her mom just abandoned her with no explanation. You just stopped seeing me for 10 years. And Marty kind of goes off on her because he felt like she kind of did the same thing and stopped kind of talking to family. Well, because I think to Marty, it was like, this is our chance to get a family together. You want to be standoffish because, oh, mom left us, but you've left me, for a while. So I think they did a good job with. They didn't do too much family drama. It's there, but they didn't beat it over the head because there was a point if they had did it really annoying and it got in the way of the movie, that could have been bad. So I'm happy they didn't go that direction with it. Like the family drama's there, but it's not overly done. So they have a barbecue. This is the scene that you basically kind of saw in a lot of the trailers. We know obviously you have like a bunch of setup with like glass breaking and they're making out like I think Howard's making like an alcoholic drink and glass falls in like the ice tray and they're jumping on the trampoline and there's like a rake under it. Darlene manages to stop them from impaling the rake. I think it's Charlie who's drinking the drink with the ice, with the glass in it, but he stops drinking it, but it gets knocked over. Howard's mowing the lawn, and he ends up stepping on or he's like walking and he steps on the glass, and then the lawnmower is still going. Something pushes, I think it was like the hoses overly inflate. The mower then obviously runs his face over. Pretty brutal. I thought that was a nice little setup. Even though we saw it in the trailers, we did not see how violent it actually was gonna be in the movie. Like it was very fucking violent. Like his face was just gone. So at this point, Stephanie tries to initially tell the family about the curse, but obviously they kind of scoff at her and they just think she. And a lot of them, and it's understandable why they're a little bit like, Howard just died and you want to do this shit right now? So you like, this movie does a good job of making you understand each of the characters, either motivations or understand the way they act because it's like, yeah, like you can understand this. You're telling Brenda this, who her husband just died. And I understand but you understand Stephanie, like, I'm trying to save you guys. I understand this is an inconvenient time to bring this up, but I have to because now this is the second fucking death within, like, I don't know how many days it was since between Iris and Howard's death, but it was relatively quick. So it's like you understand Stephanie's perspective trying to tell everybody, but you understand everybody else, their perspective, like, I don't want to hear this right now. Like, at that point, because obviously we find out Eric's not actually Howard's son. Later, we find that out later. But at the time, he thought it was his dad. So it's like, you understand, like, my dad just died, bro. Like, I don't want to hear this weird shit right now. So Darlene tries to, like, be like, hey, just let it go. And Stephanie's, like, very standoffish still because, she's still mad at her mom. So that night, Eric's working at the tattoo parlor. He's told he has to close the shop. He's finishes up with the customer, and a chain reaction causes basically the tattoo parlor. He gets stuck on like a chain that's attached to a ceiling fan, and he ends up getting caught, but he actually manages to get out. Because I actually thought in the trailer, I'm like, okay, this is probably where he's gonna die, and he actually doesn't end up dying. They made it seem like he died, so I thought the movie. This is actually one of the better done fake out deaths because they make it seem like he died. No, he actually managed to escape the next day. Because Stephanie wakes up Marty and is like, okay, I've been trying to call Eric all night and he's not been answering his phone. She thinks something's up, but they actually run into Eric. And then this is actually where um Julia, like, who's getting ready for a run, kind of tells off Stephanie, and then Eric kind of tells her to fuck off too. But she gets hit by a ball because initially before that, Stephanie's kind of saying this is gonna happen, and she basically explains how this kill's gonna get set up, and Julia ends up getting hit with a ball that kids are playing with in their like in front of their house, and she gets hit into a trash can, which is being lifted by a garbage truck. Eric, Marty, and Stephanie try to save her, and then she ends up getting crushed by a garbage in like the garbage crusher part of the garbage truck. Very brutal death. Like, yeah, that was probably CGI once again, but the movie, it looks good in the movie. Like, it doesn't look uber fake. Like, it's not Final Destination 4 where the kills look like, even if the kills looked cool, it looked like shit because the CGI, because they were trying to do the stupid 3D shit. This one obviously didn't have like a 3D gimmick, so the kills just like look good. And they actually, I think, try to make the CGI look good. So I actually will give the effects people really props, like even with the CGI kills. Like, I understand with some people their hardline stance of I hate CGI blood. Just do blood packs, blood squibs, and try to make it practical. I understand that. I'm never gonna argue with the person like that has that view. But for me, if it's done well and it's not noticeable, like the CGI blood, I can ignore it for the most part. I mean, I love Evil Dead 2013. And I bet you there were some practical moments with the blood in the movie, but there was probably some CGI blood in it too. But I thought it looked good there, with probably the moments where it was CGI. So I'm cool with CGI blood if it looks good, as long as it like doesn't look straight up CGI where I can obviously tell, okay, that's just CGI. I can ignore it for the most part. Like yeah, I would love some things to be like Terrifier where it's just straight up practical blood, but I understand with Final Destination there's gonna be elements, some of the kills you gotta do CGI with. But I think they did it well in this, so this is where basically the family is kind of starts believing Stephanie. And I mean, and I like that they do a good job of like with the skepticism, because there's points where people are just skeptical to be skeptical, even with what they've seen. It's like, okay, and not even just in these movies, it's in general, like in horror sometimes, where people can be skeptical to a point where it's fucking retarded. Like, at some point where you're seeing a string of events happening, you gotta start acknowledging, okay, something, even if you don't straight up believe, you gotta acknowledge, okay, something weird's happening. At least that. When you're just skeptical just to be skeptical, that's when I'm like, the writer's just being lazy and they want to just have tension for the sake of tension. Like, at some point, you gotta drop the character has to drop being skeptical. Because at that point, the character's just a fucking moron. Like, I understand skepticism in in this genre on at the start, because Final Destination generally does a good job of making the kills look like plausible. 4 is where it goes fucking retarded, where like, okay, none of that shit's happening, or a lot of it's you got yourself in that position. So, whereas I think this one does a good job of, making the kills still look plausible, where you initially just be like, okay, it's just natural. It's plausible, like the mower could have went, something happened, the mower caused the mower to accelerate and kill you, and the guy was already on the ground because he stepped on a piece of glass. That could fucking happen, inconceivably. So it's possible, like some of these deaths. So I think they did a good job. Like even the garbage truck kill, that has happened before. Someone accidentally got stuck in the garbage crusher part of the garbage truck. That's happened before. That's plausible. So initially, obviously, but when it happens in a row, obviously the family had said, and already what Stephanie said, you're probably at this point, okay, something's happening. So I like that the family at this point starts believing her. Even Darlene starts being like, okay, this is something's up. And they also are starting to kind of think death's killing them by age. So this is also where they conclude. So I like that aspect too, because it's never really been a thing. Because people just die in the order they died in the other movies up until this point. It was never like age was never really a factor. So I do like that they added that. That's an added like extra thing that I'm like, okay, you know what? That's cool. That's interesting. So this is at this point even Eric, because in a way I like that maybe he doesn't even fully believe, but in his mind, okay, his brother's probably not. And this is where we find out too that Eric's actually not part of the family at this point. That his mother had an affair with somebody else, and that somebody else is actually his dad. And even get a funny line, is that why he always wanted to play catch? Like that was funny. Like this movie is actually pretty fun. Even like this movie does a good job like with his character, because yeah, initially Eric, does he just start out as like maybe that skeptic little douchey guy? Yeah, a little bit, but towards like that middle and even a little bit in the beginning, they do show you he does care about his brother. He does the little typical brother trolling where you prank your brother every now and then. Like he does the cup check shit. That's something brothers do. But we do know, like, okay, he cares about his brother. So at this point, it's more about protecting his brother now. He's like, you know what? I may not fully believe in this shit. And at some point, he does eventually start just believing it. But at the point where he does initially go with him, maybe he doesn't still fully believe. But he's like, you know what? I got to protect my brother. Because even if there's like that chance, if it's real, you're gonna still be like, I gotta protect my brother, even if I don't fully believe this shit. If there's that chance, this could be real. So I think they did a good job with this character. So I wanted to take the time and kind of really do a bravo to the writers for this character, because you have him start off being like the skeptic douche that maybe initially you want to die, but then towards that middle, they do a good job of making him a good character. It's like, wow, he actually is a good guy. He's not just the douchey dude. So, yeah, he's not just a douchey skeptic like you have to have in like a lot of these movies. That's what I mean when I say I actually think this movie does a good job with all the characters. Stephanie, I think she's an alright character. She's not definitely. If I had to, if, I might actually do that at some point. Maybe do a ranking of the leads. Maybe we'll do that next week, or I guess this coming week maybe. Um, we'll do a ranking of the leads, because I think there has been some good leads. I think Alex is probably the best lead. It's probably Alex. Yeah, but I definitely think Stephanie would probably not be in the higher end, but she's still a solid character, and I think they do a good job with her having her own visions towards the end, and so they end up going to the hospital. This is where we meet Bloodworth, and we find out he's JB, and that him and Iris have actually been conversating ever since, and that Iris has basically been taking care of him, and then he helped her build her compound, and this is, past ideas about death, and that's basically how he kind of knew about everything. I think they did a good job with that. You know, like I said earlier, would I wanted him to be death? If he didn't die, yes. But now kind of understanding why they didn't go that direction, because, unfortunately he died. I think they felt like maybe it would have been in bad taste to go that route. So I'm actually kind of cool the route they went. That speech, where he said, I can't help you anymore. I'm on my, like, he basically said, you're all going to die. And when you all die, I'm going to die because I already have cancer. He's kind of accepted it in a way that part where he talks about living life and cherish it, I was like, man, that does hit differently now. Knowing. So this was a nice little, basically, kind of, if you want to call it a little tribute to to the Tony Todd, especially for Tony Todd fans, man, because there's a lot of us. I mean, Tony Todd's a great actor. I mean, Candyman, not just Candyman. I love him in The Rock. He's great in The Crow, even though he's not like a main character in that movie. He just is a henchman for the villain. I love him in The Crow. I think he makes use of his screen time in that. Same thing with fucking The Rock. He's like a henchman for Ed Harris's character, but I really like him in that movie. He makes use of his screen time. So, I thought this was a nice little ode to Tony Todd, on his way out, but also for his character too. So, and then even though this is the only scene you pretty much see him in, which was all pretty much in the trailers, you see him. I think they did a good job of making use of his time, even if he is not in the movie that much. So at this point, Eric and Bobby separate because at that point, one of the ways to avert death, Tony explains, is because one of the strategies to defeat death is you basically seemingly die and then you get brought back. And there's a scene where they're kind of joking about the whole like killing somebody thing, and they're like, no, we're not going to do that. And then they look over at a baby because they think, oh, they have a lot of time. And they're like, no. I think, like I said, the humor is so well done, but it's situational. So they employ the second strategy that Bloodworth suggested. So they know, Eric knows Bobby's, deathly allergic to peanuts. So he gets some, I think like a Reese's Buttercup, and he eats that, and they figure he's in a hospital. It'll stop his heart for a bit. He'll be temporarily dead, but then brought back. Because they figured too, because he's in a hospital, and, doctors are there. There's all this medical supplies that we're able to kind of get away with this, and it won't, go wrong. But the vending machine ends up getting stuck, and they kick it, and one of the springs, but the snack's still able to get out, but one of the springs where that holds the snack up comes out or pops out, but it's not fully popped out yet, and the glass is already slightly broken anyway because Eric hit it. So they managed to start eating the snack. And then the MRI machine, before they're even able to really get going, starts fucking up, and it sucks Eric up because basically the idea is, even though Eric's not part of the bloodline, he ends up fucking with Death's plan, so he has to die. Essentially, is that kind of the rule. That's how I took it as. He gets sucked up into the machine, and the machine's magnetic, so it sucks up like a lot of his piercings. Unfortunately, that sucks out a little bit of his insides, and yeah, he brutally dies. Then Bobby ends up getting killed with one of the springs that ends up springing out of the broken glass of the vending machine and impales Bobby in the head. And at this point, Darlene suggests they have to go to their grandmother's cabin. Initially, Darlene wants to do it on her own, but basically her kids refuse. Like, no, we got to do this together. And they try to do that. And another chain reaction starts causing the cabin of the RV to explode. And Darlene ends up getting bisected. And Stephanie's like trapped in water. And he manages to resuscitate her with CPR pretty quick. They think they beat it because he intervened and she seemingly died and was brought back. We find out the doctor, like it's a week later, in that we find out, yeah, she actually didn't die. And then there's a sequence where she keeps seeing like a car pass the train, which you initially think is part of the 60s, because that's actually how the film opens. It's part of the 60s um, section of the movie, is actually just a guy who has a classic car driving through. Then the train derails, crashes through. Charlie and Marty's try to escape, but then a log truck, which gets hit, causing the logs to fall and impale, well, not impale, but crush um, Stephanie and Marty. And oh, Charlie, I'm so dumb. Charlie is the brother. I got the brother's name wrong the whole fucking time. Fucking A. So Charlie and Stephanie end up getting killed by logs, and that's pretty much the end of the movie. So I thought that sequence was very well done. And I know some people have an issue with it, but I always feel like this is a trope of the franchise. There's really, outside of Kimberly surviving, which they do confirm earlier in the movie, you don't really have survivors. This has never been a survivor franchise. It just isn't. You know, I understand why some people want it to be, and maybe they want to see someone cheat death. I understand that. And if coming from that aspect, I understand, but there's just some people that's just like, have you seen these movies? Like, these movies have always kind of been, you don't generally cheat death, and I think that's like kind of the theme, is you don't cheat death. I've always thought that was the theme of the franchise, was you don't cheat death. You know, that's been like the overall theme of this entire franchise, is you don't cheat death. And maybe one character did, but that's one of those things. Maybe one person can't, but I generally don't want a bunch of people cheating death. Ideally, just I kind of like what they're doing. This is not the Survivor franchise, and I'm hoping for if they ever do a Final Destination 7, I have said I would not mind it being a period piece, but you just don't attach it to the previous movies. Have it be it's Final Destination 7, but it's its own story, where maybe you can maybe tie it to 180, but like I think that's as most as I wanted to be tied to any of the other films. I think just tie it to the first one maybe, but I think that would be interesting, especially with that opening scene. I'm kind of all for a period piece Final Destination now, but I'm do not do a Survivor. I'm do not, just even if you don't do my idea, just in general, I'm worried now that there'll be, and there's some people. I understand that creatives want to sometimes be like, you want to listen to the fans, but for me, I do not want survivors. I just don't think this is the franchise for that. Because the idea is, I've always felt like the theme was you do not cheat death, and I think it works better. I think that theme works. So, but anyway, I really liked Final Destination 6 Bloodlines. This was really good. This is a nice return to form. Go see it. I actually think you should go see it in the theater. I do want to see it in theaters again at some point. It was worth the watch. I'm 8.5 out of 10. I'm really happy with this movie. Good characters, nice, interesting direction of the movies, and good cast. The kills were well delivered, and I'm gonna say it again. I thought the CGI blood and even the CGI moments in general were just done well. Where it wasn't like, this is just bad CGI. Because I mean, The Monkey, another movie I really liked this year, had CGI killed, and I thought the blood was still done well. So you can do CGI blood and it be done well. So, but anyways, I feel like that's all I really wanted to say. Great movie. I'm gonna definitely the best one since. I originally said best one since 3. I think it's the best one since 2, in my opinion. Like, in terms of, I put this up there with those movies. So, but anyways, guys, I'm gonna call it here. Tonight or tomorrow, updated Final Destination ranking with Bloodlines, including Bloodlines. So that'll be today or tomorrow. if I do it today, I'll figure out what I'm gonna do tomorrow. Um, Actually, I might just, since we're just gonna continue this Final Destination train, why not? We'll do the next video after that will be the ranking of the Final Destination leads. So at some point I want to do the kills, but just because there's so many kills and 6 movies, that just would be a really long video. So maybe I could do like up to 3. We'll see. Well, I'll think about that one, but definitely the other 2 I'm doing. So, but anyways, guys, I'm gonna call it here. Subscribe to Pin Down Podcast. We should be back. Either we're live or we'll, if we do like a predictions just video, we should be doing something next week. So, anyways, guys, talk to y'all later.